Right, back with you, and thanks for staying on. A policing standoff is unfolding in Gauteng. This after JMPD Tactical Unit officers were arrested by SAPS in Bekkersdal. The city alleges unlawful targeting and obstruction of legitimate policing operations, while SAPS insists the arrests were lawful. The confrontation raises urgent concerns about coordination, authority, as well as public trust. Joined now by both Dr. Mgcini Tshwaku, Joburg MMC for Public Safety, and Dr. Bandile Masuku, Chair of the Gauteng Community Safety Committee. Gentlemen, good to have you, and thank you very much for coming on this afternoon. Let me start with you, Dr. Tshwaku. Is this the first occurrence of such tension between your TRUs and the South African Police Service?
No, good afternoon to yourself, Brati, and also to the viewers at home. Look, this has not been the first one. There have been some incidents that were there, but they don't overshadow the fact that we've been working together with SAPS. And I mean, with the incidents that has happened, perhaps I can assure you that we've never lost hope to our colleagues, and we have been reaching out to them so that, I mean, we can work together. Because remember, our authority as JMPD is limited. We can do crime prevention, and we can't, we can arrest, but in terms of the detaining and investigation is by SAPS. So we need each other and we need them. But there are ongoing talks in terms of how can we solve this impasse.
Yeah, my understanding is that there already is some kind of intergovernmental relationship. I mean, including the one that we just spoke about here in the news with regards to operations for the G20 summit.
Yes, there is. We're always meeting with the Premier and also the MEC for Kokta Mamabono. On every Tuesday, we are presenting all of us as municipalities what we've done in terms of bylaw enforcement, crime, and as well. So we are working very well with the colleagues on the top level, and also Dr. Bandile Masuku on his Oversight committee. We are working very well. We don't have any issues. It's just that my observation, Brati, is that as you go on the level of the station commander, at the bottom, the warrants and kennels at the bottom, that's where I see that maybe there are these tensions. But tensions in terms of, when we arrest, areas where maybe we find drugs or maybe we are chasing some criminals, when you go and fill in a SAP 14, that's like after you've done an arrest, you must go to the police station to book those items you find and the criminal that you find. And you find that there's a resistance. We did get some of the resistance in the station like Orange Farm, but we've sorted our differences as well. And you know that also the famous Midrand, when we did a drug bust, you find that there was a resistance there as well. But we haven't given up hope. Even with this one, where we found that there was the police in the West Rand area, we have to also isolate that this incident happened in Bekkersdal, SAPS in Bekkersdal, when we were doing a genuine arrest, and they actually, arrested our JMPD TRU, knowing that these are the members of JMPD. The car had blue lights, and your what you call the breakdown as well. I mean, it was a marked breakdown and all of that. Instead, because we've signed an intergovernmental, MOU that, I mean, there's no boundaries anymore. We can work together. And also we've signed an MOU from the national, province, and national that we're going to be working together. So what the SAPS in Bekkersdal has demonstrated, I want to say in Bekkersdal have demonstrated, it was actually a not working together relationship that we have. But we've been reaching out to the district commissioner and also to Commissioner Mtombeni.
Yeah. Dr. Masuku, I mean, how do you read it as the legislature? I mean, the JMPD saying we were conducting a lawful arrest. SAPS are also saying, no, our arrest was also lawful. I mean, it's the case of the top not communicating to the bottom in terms of how do we collaborate, or is there illegality in your sense in what is going on here?
I don't think there's illegality, and I think it's a matter that we have been trying to enforce as an oversight committee, to say that we won't be able to defeat crime if we don't work together without proper coordination, and somehow to have a central command system which will make sure that all law enforcement agencies within the province function and work together. It also helps with a lot of areas of sharing resources, sharing human resource, and also, being able to work together and be effective and be almost everywhere where we are actually needed in the province. But I also think that this is not the first incident where there is almost like a conflict or confrontation between law enforcement agencies. I think in Ekurhuleni, in a couple of years ago, we have seen such, incidences. But we hope that the MOU itself, which is work in progress, would be able to speed up, this coordination.
Yeah.
And, we, for the past 2 years or 3 years, we've been calling for what we call an integrated provincial command center, which the province is in the process of establishing, but the pace of establishing it, these are the problems, that it's slow and it's not fast. And now we are seeing these incidences happening, which I call for concern.
Yeah. Dr. Masuku, I think, from where I'm sitting, you might be coming up with interventions at a provincial level. They might not be filtering to communities, for example, in as far as what is legitimate police operation, right? Because the Lieutenant General Mtombeni says, no, this is given a rise because of community mobilization. It's the community who sent a complaint and says, no, these people here are hijacking us, they are wearing traffic police uniforms, they're not legitimate police, and so they raised alarm.
Yeah, I think that's the issue, because we wouldn't know who is a police officer except that they're able to identify themselves, and I think it's upon both law enforcement agencies in municipalities, in the metros, and also the South African Police Service to be able to identify themselves, because you can't interact with citizens without properly identifying yourself. And I think it's part of the Criminal Procedures Act that, it's important for anyone, a law enforcement person who confronts you, must be able to identify themselves and be able to say who they are. And if they don't have, let's say, for a lack of a better identification and name tag, then it is a big problem. But, there's also a lot of things that are happening within the police, the law enforcement agencies themselves, Now we know that there are corrupt police officers, the Madlanga Commission, the Ad hoc Commission, and also it just deepens the trust deficit that the public and the community have on law enforcement.
Yeah. Dr. Tshwaku, you and I know that blue lights have been abused, right? Blue lights have been abused, police uniforms have been abused. So, it would be understandable that communities are a little bit suspect when it comes to people just rocking up saying we are coming to conduct an operation here without a sense of authenticating themselves that they are indeed who they say they are.
No, Thabo, they did. They did. If you look at the charge sheet, what I would have done, let's say, if I was those officers in Bekkersdal, I will approach them. People say that they are coming from the JMPD. And then immediately you ask about who's your commander from the JMPD, and then you just verify. And those cops, by the way, they actually had their firearm licenses with them, written JMPD. Their car is this BMW, this BMW is because remember, this was an undercover unit, that has been operating there. It's very simple. And if it was on that level, let's say of a district commissioner or let's say Commissioner Mtombeni, whatever, because me and him were always exchanging notes. He could have just said, maybe call even Uchacha, the commissioner Chacha, to say, Chacha, I've got your people here, mang. Can I verify them very quickly? There was no need to be aggressive like that, confiscating their firearms and threatening them to shoot them. And I can tell you now on site, the breakdown was the JMPD breakdown. And that breakdown, you don't just call it anywhere. You have to call through the control room. So what I'm trying to say is that those officers, they were the officers of JMPD. There was no other business. And what the utterances of the SAPS, they're saying that, you know what, we found you, you've been an irritation here, and you've been bothering us. And I still want to get an answer from those SAPS officers. What do you mean when they're saying that these officers have been bothering them? Because what we were chasing ourselves, we work with crime intelligence, told us that there's a Zama that has surfaced. He's been underground for 9 months, and we've been on him for a very long time. So he surfaced now, and we know that he's driving a Toyota Hilux. And then our informant told us that he has surfaced, and this car has been seen, and we followed it. It was very simple because remember, this collaboration, Thabo, is a collaboration between the two. It's very simple. It's a verification process, and then after that, we can take it from there. That's what we did ourselves when we busted the seven officers, SAPS officers, that were extorting and kidnapping. The first thing we did, we took them to the police station. We've called their generals to verify. It was very simple. We didn't even have those this dramatic arrangement that they did. What was so even funny from the SAPS that side, they were even refusing JMPD internal affairs to see those officers and be briefed what is happening. We let it go on Friday, said maybe let's go on Saturday. Saturday, JMPD went there to ask what is happening. If those officers were not typos, they were doing something wrong. Obviously, we're going to charge them. We're not there to defend them. Yeah. So it's the working relationship that I'm talking about. Yeah. And obviously, communities are going to report crime, no problem. But amongst colleagues, we verify, we have a way of verifying, and they know it and I know it. Yeah. But the problem is that we're always going to areas where we get calls sometimes. Yeah. So
let's get to that nub of the matter. Maybe let me ask a more direct question. Now, these turf wars or these issues about credit, remember you came in here the last time when you were busting people, Zamas there in the West End again, and you said here to us, my boys, the TRUs, they're not afraid. They go in there. While these SAPS are still waiting on the outside, they don't want to go in. Is this the question of turf wars and contesting on who gets the credit for the bust?
No, Thabo, let me put it bluntly to you. Okay. In many operations that we do, let me put it as law enforcement officers who are in the pockets of drug dealers, who are in the pockets of Zama. They are given money every time. Some of them, these law enforcement officers, are the ones who are transporting soil that is enriched with mineral, and some of them are in the pockets of the drug dealers. It is there. So sometimes when you go and do an operation, uyabuza ukuthi ufunani lapho, phuma apho. I mean, when we did a drug blast on that the 350k cocaine, it was those things of crystal meth, and you remember in Hillbrook.
Yes.
We got calls. And some weird calls about Nenzani lapo MMC, Pumani lapo, and then the call would actually drop. And some of my guys from the TRU were getting calls from individuals, from the law enforcement officers, but the Pumani lapo. So now we don't know, even with this one, where we're disturbing anyone now. Because why the SAPS in Bekkersdal were so angry at us? What was the reason? What is the motive? They were so angry that they could point guns at us. They want to arrest us and do all these things for what good reason? Yeah. And up until we even told them that these are the officers of JMPD's undercover unit. And all their licenses are there. And that's what correct Dr. Masuku is saying, that we need to be working together. We need one law enforcement officers. We're not fighting with SAPS, and we're not going to fight with them. I can tell you now. Yeah. Even if we have cases of them shooting JMPD, they shot Timkul, they shot other officers in Ekuru Lane, and then they've been arresting us. But we're not going to give up hope because we are defined under them. We are derived under the SAPS Act. We're working with them. We're not going to give up hope. But we said the Premier and the MEC and also General Mtombeni must come to the party. Let us not talk over media and all of that, because he hasn't been briefed properly what has happened. Yeah. He is not sure what is happening in Mtombeni. I can tell you right now.
Dr. Masuku, I mean, I don't know if province has got such capacity. Are you not due your own ad hoc committee inquiry here?
I'm trying to avoid that situation, but in the situation where we do the oversight, like the report that MMC Mgcini is actually talking about, we need to call the PC, we need to call him, to come in front of the committee to explain what is happening, because we also need to look beyond this incident, because we don't want this incident to repeat itself. We want law enforcement agencies in the province to work together in a coordinated fashion, and that will make us more effective in fighting crime. And it shouldn't be about competition between the law enforcement agencies, who does what. All of us, we've got one single objective of defeating crime in Gauteng, and we need actually to do that. But we are going to call them, to give us this report, and maybe also address even the other incidences where the SAPS had some confrontation with other law enforcement. But it's important that we become transparent and we make people accountable in their positions.
Yeah. No, I'm saying it in jest in terms of competition, but I suppose the even more worrying issue is what Dr. Tshwaku is raising of infiltration by criminal syndicates that are seemingly uncomfortable with particular raids that are being conducted at particular areas.
Yeah, it is real, and that's why I said initially, this, what we are hearing in Madlanga Commission, what we are hearing in the ad hoc committee, it's a very glaring now fact, that, as government or the state, we need to be ready to somehow deal with rogue cops, with rogue, politicians who are in the pockets of cartels, and we need to get rid of it. It's going to be a difficult actually process, but I think the Madlanga Commission it's one step forward, and hopefully when it completes, we will be able to get a proper reform on law enforcement, in the country in general. At the moment, we are in a period where, we can say it's a twilight space, and we are still going to hear a lot of wrongness that happens from the police side and even from the politicians themselves.
Dr. Tshwaku, you are hopeful. You're saying you remain hopeful, you remain cooperative, you have not thrown in the towel. Do you believe this fragile cooperation hinges on Lieutenant General Tomi Mtombeni coming on board here? Could he be the solution, or the nut that is missing, or the bolt that is missing in this connection?
Yes, but I think that also I've reached out to the Premier and also MMC Mamabolo to come in on the political side, and then on the Commissioner Chacha and his team, and also General Mtombeni. And I think that probably all the chiefs of the metros, we should actually have a framework that is clear in terms of how we're going to be working, because now we are borderless. We can cross borders and we can work together and all of that. Because I did said with one of the meetings that colleagues, some of the raids are not going to be planned. It's going to be element of surprise. Because the only way that we defeated some of these, these zamazamas is through a surprise, like covert operations and all of that. We're not going to be sitting in some air-conditioned offices and planning, and then thugs are going to know that we are coming for actually them. So I think that a framework, and maybe, look, Dr. Bandile, raising something that's important. Maybe we must be summoned to the committee just to vent out all these issues, and then maybe they can give guidance in terms of how are we going to be moving forward, because I can tell you now, we really want to work. We want to ensure that, these criminals are there. But what we're not going to tolerate, both in JMPD and in SAPS, we're not going to allow individuals who are collaborating with the criminals. Yeah. The colleague that was called in Johannes, so that was mentioned in Madlanga, immediately was sent home packing, that we're not going to have individuals who are working with the criminals. And that's what I said when I entered 2 years ago. I said that we're not going to protect any criminals or any individuals who are collecting from the spaza shops, officers who are collecting from zamazamas, officers who are collecting with, receiving money from the criminals. That is not going to be allowed. Right. I said we must root it out. So we are hopeful that we're not going to give up. I can tell you now what has been going on with the JMPD was the issue of Mtimkul. Officer Mtimkul. I'm always raising it. A woman that was shot in, in actually cold blood by SAPS. So that matter is still with the IPID. There's no response as yet. And many other JMPD officers and EMPD officers who were shot by our colleagues from the SAPS. And colleagues, they still want those answers. No one has been arrested yet. I know that in Naledi, SAPS, and I think it's Naledi area, Naledi, but that area where Mthimkhulu is coming from, those officers are still refusing to work with SAPS. We are in a process of every time trying to integrate them. It was very painful when our colleagues shot that person there. But we're hopeful, we're not going to give up. We did an operation with them on Friday when we went into the CBD.
Yes.
We were laughing about issues and all of that. We were fine. But it's just these small things there. People know who wants to continue with their rogue thing, rogue. Yeah.
Let's leave it there. I appreciate you, gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming on. Dr. Mgcini Tshwaku, MMC for Public Safety, as well as Dr. Bandile Masuku, Chair of the Gauteng Community Safety Committee there, right? What's making news on the Newsfeed PM when we continue? Stay with us.